What's going on, bottom line viewers? It's Mitch here, live for your Week 8 Bottom Line Weekly Recap, Review, Reaction, where I rant and I rave about this past week in the NFL. We are going to discuss some hot topics, recap the trades that went down at the trade deadline, kind of a little bit of an uneventful trade deadline, somewhat. Also, the big games from the weekend. The Baltimore Ravens, the Pittsburgh Steelers, AFC North showdown. That rivalry is back at its peak. So I'm excited to talk about that. Potentially the Steelers winning that game. What does that mean for the AFC? The Patriots, who is to blame? We're going to talk about that because Bill Belichick wants to come out and talk about how he sold out for 3 more Super Bowl rings. Is he actually telling the truth? Is he trying to take the blame off himself? All that and more in this episode of the Bottom Line Recap for the NFL. I know it's a big night in the US, and we're going to try to just take our minds off the politics and stick to sports here tonight on the Bottom Line View. So let's start off with something we always start off with. But before we do get into the topics of the show, make sure you do Gronk spike that like button and subscribe to the Bottom Line View for more NFL and for weekly NFL recaps and this show where I recap every big event inside the NFL from the past week. Also, comment your questions. We will get to the questions, the Q&A portion of the show at the end of the show after I'm done all the big topics. We have a little section at the end where I address the live chat. You guys give me your questions, your opinions, and we just go off live here on the show. All right, so first topic, as always, is the Ultra Top 10. The Ultra Top 10 this week is really interesting, I think, because there isn't a top 10, really. I mean, the NFL is not full of 10 good teams. That's just the way I could put it. There's about 5 good teams, and the rest of the league kind of sucks. That's just my opinion. When you look at it, Ultra has the Steelers, I think, as their first place vote for his top 10. The Chiefs moved down to number 2, previously being the number 1 team for multiple weeks. The Buccaneers are at number 3 after being number 2, after a not so satisfying victory on Monday Night Football. Number 4 is the Seattle Seahawks, who have maintained top 5 position basically the entire season. The Baltimore Ravens, they are in 5th place as probably the last good team in the NFL, but I'm sure people could debate that as they've lost to the only real legit teams on their schedule thus far, the Steelers and the Chiefs. The Saints are at number 6, which that is interesting, I guess. I mean, I don't really buy the Saints as a legitimate contender this year just because I think they'll be held back by not a very good defense and a quarterback that's just aging every single week. Number 7 is the Cardinals. The Cardinals, another team that I'm not sold on. I feel like you could put from number 6 to number 15. I think you could sort through it and make an argument for any of the teams within the top 12, top 15 to be in any sort of position, form, or shape that you really want to, depending on the argument that you give. The Saints, he has at number 6. The Cardinals at number 7. Kyler Murray, they had a good showing on Sunday Night Football 2 weeks ago. And that maybe is why they're at number 7. Number 8, the Packers, they had one of their roughest, maybe their roughest game of the season versus the Vikings, where they were completely dominated at the line of scrimmage. Dalvin Cook had a day, dominated the game, allowed the Vikings to win. Number 9, the Colts. Colts are flawed at quarterback, but at least they have a well-rounded roster with a very good defense. Top 5, I would argue. And at number 10, the Tennessee Titans, their AFC South rival. Ryan Tannehill, maybe regressing, starting to a little bit right now this season. But other than that, good offense. Derrick Henry's a beast. Defense, though, needs work, and they made a trade. So we're going to discuss that trade here shortly. So that is your ultra top 10 teams. Let me know your top 10 teams in the comment section below, what you guys think and who you have where in terms of your top 10. So today, man, this is interesting. I'm really intrigued because like I said in the top 10, I'm not buying any teams outside of the top 5, the top 4. Like, I'm pretty much sold that the top 4 teams, the top 5 teams are the only teams this year that can legitimately compete for a Super Bowl. Like, I think the top 2 teams in the AFC are the Chiefs and the Steelers, and that will be the AFC Championship. The Bucs and the Seahawks in the NFC. I'm not buying anyone else. I don't remember a year that's been this clear in my mind for quite some time. And I understand that none of these top 4 teams that I've mentioned are like superior to the rest of the league, but the way they've played in comparison to the other teams in the league, it just seems like those are the 4 that are going to end up on Championship Sunday. It really does feel that way. When you look at the NFC, are the Saints going to be that team? If they have to go on the road, I'm not necessarily sold that they can be that team. Now, maybe Aaron Rodgers gets hot, but they're flawed in other areas that don't have to do with Aaron Rodgers. A team could just simply run the ball like the Vikings that are lesser than the Packers and find a way to upset them. So I'm not exactly sure that the Packers could do it. The 49ers have been riddled with injuries. The Cardinals are inexperienced. The Rams are frauds. I don't see a team outside of those top 2. In the AFC, maybe it's a little bit more fuzzy because I think the Ravens can compete, especially versus the Steelers. We saw that on Sunday. It was a very good game. It was a game that I felt the Ravens honestly dominated, but they weren't able to come out the victors because of turnovers. Maybe the Titans because they made a run last year. But like, guys, it's appearing to be clear that the top 2 in each conference is the top 2 and the top 4 in this league. It really does appear that way right now. So that's kind of my thoughts on the top 10 and the way I would order it. It's a clear top 4, maybe a clear top 5, but after the top 5, it's very, very sketchy. All right, the first topic for the show is the New England Patriots. So I want to start off with the Patriots here just because they're my team. They're the team that gets the most traction. They're the team that, of course, I get the most views on, the most viewership, the most comments, the most interaction from, because they're my team and because I have strong opinions when it comes to my team. So the Patriots are the first topic. And this week they lost a tough game. Going into the game, first we'll start with the prediction video from Wednesday last week. I said that if the Patriots lose, because I picked them to win, I will pick the Jets and I will not pick the Patriots for a month. Now, people that know me and follow me on Instagram know that I actually switched my pick to the Bills. So I don't know if I'm actually going through with that. Maybe just for the sake of it, for being a good guy, because I said it on my picks show, that I'll carry it through. But I actually did switch my pick to the Bills. But I was correct. The game was super close, and I took the points, and I was right there. So I was right about the game and what happened in the game. But I was disappointed by the result because of how the game came out. The game appeared to be that New England was going to win it. At the end, they were driving. The game was competitive throughout. They were running the ball the way that I said. Their defense was competitive. Their secondary was locking down Josh Allen and his receivers. The Bills had their way in the running game, which was something that was slightly surprising. But if you've seen New England's defense this year, it's especially versus the run, you knew that that was capable of happening, especially versus San Francisco. We saw that happen. But their defense in the secondary was playing well. They were moving the ball. Cam Newton was playing a good game, especially in the second half. And it looked like they were going to win. Cam Newton drove down the field. They were in position to win. Josh McDaniels calls a run play for them, and Cam Newton, QB power to the left. He's taken off. He's got a first down. Everything's going nice. And just an amazing play by the Bills defense to come out with a punch of the football, a peanut punch, and the recovery. And that just flat ended the game. When it was one of those moments in football where it went from, oh my goodness, on one side, you're going to win the game, to on the opposite side, oh my goodness, we just lost the game. It was like the Malcolm Butler play, obviously in a lot lower, stance, outcome, game, all that stuff. But it still was a big moment for the Patriots season, because if they win that game, they're what? 3-4? They're going to go 4-4 versus the Jets, and then they're 500, and they're right back in the thick of things. But they lose the game, so they end up being 2-5. They're taken basically out of the running to win the AFC East. It's going to be next to impossible unless the Bills implode. And now it's going to be backs against the wall to make the playoffs, and it's very unlikely that they'll even make the playoffs. Now, I'm not ruling them out to get the 7th or maybe even 8th wild card, if that's the case, if they're changing it. But I'm going to say it's very unlikely. If they win that game, okay, you got a shot. You got a realistic chance, actually. Maybe you even pick them to make it. But they lose the game on a thing where, everyone's going to blame Cam Newton for the loss. But anybody that watched the game understands that Cam Newton was one of the only reasons they were actually in the game, because they couldn't stop the run. They really couldn't get, any. The receivers are brutal. Okay, this is the thing. Patriot blame, right? That's the title of this segment. It's not Cam Newton. You cannot blame Cam Newton. Cam Newton was signed at the end of the offseason, in a COVID offseason, where he's having to learn a complex playbook. He's having to learn a complex system. And next to that, he gets COVID in the middle of the year, after he started off his season as an MVP candidate, 2-1. His receiving core is the worst in football by a country mile, guys. It's not particularly close. The team traded for a guy named Isaiah Ford, the 8th string receiver on the Dolphins, and he's going to end up being their starting player, probably in 2 weeks. So that just speaks to the talent that they have on the roster. You lose Julian Edelman, you lose your starting right tackle before the year. All right? You lose Dante Hightower, you lose Patrick Chung to the COVID opt-outs. Okay, those were 2 big losses. And that has something to do with where most of the blame is going, and that's Bill Belichick. And not Bill Belichick, the coach. All right? Bill Belichick, the GM. Because Bill Belichick, the GM, is being blamed for the construction of this roster. And what did Bill Belichick say this week? He said, I sold out to win 3 Super Bowls. We went to 3 Super Bowls. We went to another AFC Championship game or whatever. And I sold out we went to another Super Bowl and we lost because of my fault, by the way. So let's get into this. Let's get into this. I'm supposed to rant, right? This is a rant show. Let's get into it, all right? So as far as I see the Patriot dynasty is built up of 2 periods, essentially. So let's just split it up into decades. So from 2010 to 2020 and from 2001 to 2009. Let's just split it up into 2 decades, all right? So the Patriot dynasty, 20 years. The Patriots, this is the way, because everyone wants to know, who is the reason the Patriots are what they were? Why did the dynasty happen? Was it Brady? Was it Belichick? Who do you give the blame? Who do you give all the credit to, right? Well, I've always been somebody to say it's 50-50 down the line, and even more so, I've swayed towards Belichick because he's the coach. He is, in many ways, the system, the ideology of the franchise, and that is the 60-40 split to me was mostly Belichick because of the construction, right? Of the dynasty, of the teams, of the Patriot way. It wasn't Brady, it was Belichick. All right. But I think many could now say that the first 3 Super Bowls were mostly Belichick. All right. Although I think if you don't have a top 5 quarterback in the league at the time, not 2001, but 2003, 2004, The Patriots don't win the Super Bowl in 2003, 2004, even though they had the best team in the NFL those 2 years. There's no doubt about it. They had absolute awesome rosters. But Brady was a top 5 quarterback. And if you don't believe so, go back, watch those games, and you would understand. Especially from a physical standpoint, he was one of the best in the league in terms of passing the football and all of that stuff. And the thing about Brady and the greatness of Brady is, we're seeing it in Tampa Bay as well, is his ability to evolve, his ability to adapt, and his ability to play within multiple types of teams and multiple types of systems. And that's why I think that's why they were so perfect together, because Belichick evolved so much. He wanted to craft his team, his roster, to the way that the NFL was evolving through the times, and Brady was able to do that. But I think you had to say that if you had to give credit one way or the other to 2001, 2003, 2004, I would say up until 2006-ish is Bill Belichick. From that point on, Brady was more responsible for the success of the New England Patriots. Brady became the best player in the NFL. You could argue in 2006 with Reese Caldwell, but definitely in 2007. So then from 2007, 2008, he gets injured. They would have won the Super Bowl that year. Sorry, Steelers fans, but they would have. They went 11-5 with Matt Castle. Great coaching job by Bill Belichick. But people don't understand that Matt Castle actually went to the playoffs with a different franchise with the Chiefs. So Matt Castle was okay, all right? He went to the playoffs. He made a Pro Bowl outside of New England. But in 2009, they weren't very good, but they still had Brady, they still had Welker, and they still had Moss. They were good enough to make the playoffs. They lost. 2010, Brady was the MVP. He was back from the injury. He was 100%. All right, but I've always said, and people always say that Brady was carried by defenses, and this is a big reason. And I go into this in the Brady hater video and all that stuff, but like, the Patriots defense, which Bill Belichick is known to be the greatest defensive coach of all time, the Patriots defense from 2009 to 2014, they were awful. They had one of the worst defenses in the league in 2010. They got ran on for over 200 yards by Ray Rice in the wild card in 2009. They were terrible in 2011. They were 32nd in the league in passing defense, and they made it to the Super Bowl. In 2013, they were bad, okay? And they had no weapons on offense. That's the year Gronk got hurt. They played a way better Broncos team with Peyton Manning, and they just had no chance. Then they finally get a defense in 2014, and hey, Brady's still playing really well and actually had a great year that year. And, at the end of the year, I think he was better than Rodgers for like 3/4 of the year, but it wasn't good for the first quarter, so that's why Rodgers won the MVP. They win that. He had an incredible playoff run. They win the Super Bowl. 2015, Brady was second in MVP voting behind Cam Newton, and they almost beat the Broncos, who won the Super Bowl with a very limited roster because of injuries. But the Patriots roster got really good again from 2014 to 2017, and they won they went to two other they lost in the AFC Championship to the Super Bowl champion by 2 points in 2015. They lost the Super Bowl to Nick Foles in 2017. That was Belichick's fault, okay? That year, 2017, was Belichick's fault. They had an incredible team. They had a lot of injuries. Okay, Edelman was out for the year. Hightower was out for the year. They had a bunch of injuries. They had James Harrison as their top pass rusher. But not playing Malcolm Butler in the Super Bowl is why they lost. It's as simple as that. It's why I don't want to say, I don't want to take anything away from the Eagles, but your quarterback threw for 530 yards and you lost. Okay, that's not Brady's fault. He had the best performance in the Super Bowl and they lost. Okay? The Eagles, as good as they were, as loaded as they were, the Patriots should have won if his defense makes one stop. Okay? One. So that was Belichick's fault. 2018, great coaching year. Great coaching year. They beat the Chiefs in Kansas City. All of that stuff. That was great. That was both, I would say. More Belichick than Brady in 2018, but both were responsible. Last year, it fell apart because no weapons, and we're seeing it again. The fall of the roster in 2019, all right? The fall of the roster happened last year. Incredible defense. The defense was loaded, and it was the best in the league, one of the best in history through the first half of the year, and they just couldn't do it on offense. They tried to piece it together. It just couldn't happen. And now we're seeing that Brady still is really good. He's still elite if you give him talent. But Belichick was never able to replenish the talent after 2017. That's when it really started. Once they traded away Brandon Cooks, they could never replace Brandon Cooks. They could never get a receiver. They could never replace Gronk when Gronk left. They just failed to put talent around Brady. They just did. They had a chance to win last year because of how good their defense was, but they had zero receiving options. And this year, even with Cam Newton, no Brady, if you give him one receiver, they got a chance to make the playoffs. I honestly don't think this team's that bad. They're just criminally terrible in one area where they have no playmakers. They have no guys that can get open. They have no guys that can stretch the field. The Bills played 10 guys within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage. 10 guys within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage, and you want your quarterback to beat that. I don't care if your quarterback is 2007 Brady, 2013 Peyton Manning, 84 Marino. I don't care, okay? You got Jacoby Myers, an undrafted quarterback in his second year, as your best receiver on the team. Are you kidding me? And you expect to win in the NFL? Guys, I've said it. And this is the frustrating part to me about the Patriots. Because I come on here and I say, what's the second most important position? Wide receiver! It is! And they can't get a receiver. They draft N'Keal Harry, who's a bust. I'm sorry. I think the guy's a good guy. He's a bust. They drafted 2 tight ends this year that don't even play. Okay? Look at all the receivers that were in last year's draft. You had DK Metcalf in the second round. All Belichick had to do was look at the 40 times and just draft the fastest guy. But he drafted the slowest guy. And then this year, you got Justin Jefferson. You got Henry Ruggs. You got CeeDee Lamb. You got Jerry Jeudy. You got all these guys. Terry McLaurin in what, the 17th round last year? And you couldn't pick him? You couldn't pick one receiver. One. Guys, receiver's the second most valuable position right now. It is. It is. And Bill Belichick could not find one out of 2 of the best years for receiver I've ever seen. That's why they suck right now. Because of Bill Belichick, the GM. And this is a narrative that I have not brought up. I have not believed in, I will say, until this year. Because I don't think people are right when saying that, for the most part. They're often wrong. Because until the last 2 years, the Patriots have been winning. So obviously something worked, okay? The way they built their teams worked at that time. But once you see Brady regressing, once you see Gronk retire, once you see Edelman get older, it's your fault when you don't replace these players. It's your fault. Even the guy that we thought was the prototypical Patriot, Hunter Renfrow in the 7th round, you couldn't have picked him? Bro, I don't want to come across as a, whiny Patriots fan because I'm not trying to do that. But as an NFL analyst, I got to sit here and I got to critique what I got to critique. And the guy has not done his job to the best of his ability. The guy has not addressed what every person in the bar watching the Patriots on Sundays could tell you. They don't have any receivers. They don't have any tight ends. They got a great offensive line. Secondary's phenomenal. What else don't they have? Big people. So what happens? The Bills, who couldn't run versus the local high school team, run for 100 yards versus the Patriots. There's a problem. It's your defense, Bill. You didn't sign any defensive tackles. I guess those guys don't matter anymore. We're just going to let people run all day. And here's the thing. You can't afford to have no defensive line or no linebackers when you have no offense. So a team is just going to control the ball and score all these points, and you have no defensive line. So you can't, okay, I get it. You can play pass defense. Pass defense works when you have an offense. But when you don't have an offense, you can't win when you can't stop the run because other teams will just be able to run the clock out. Like, do you guys understand what I'm saying? Part of the reason a team like the Packers, okay, the Packers aren't phenomenal or anything, but the way they built their team is that they have Aaron Rodgers, they have Devontae Adams, and the Packers are flawed because they should have traded, they should have drafted Chase Claypool, okay? They should have traded for Will Fuller today. They should have signed Robbie Anderson. They could have done all those things. They didn't, okay? Packers are flawed as well because they should have gotten another receiver, but they didn't, okay? Defensively, though, they've said, we have Aaron Rodgers. We're going to outscore people. And when we're in the lead, we can play pass defense. So we're not worried about run defense. All right, but then even them, they have Zadarius Smith, they have Preston Smith, they have Kenny Clark. That's more scheme related than it is talent related, in my opinion. They've done a good job constructing the roster, in my opinion. The Patriots have no receivers, no tight ends, a quarterback that's coming through a training camp, learning a system that's most people say the most complex in the game, and now he's having to carry a team like Superman because you got nobody. And your defense, that's supposed to be one of the best in the league, can't stop the run. So, like, the easiest thing that you can do in the NFL is stop the run. And the Patriots can't stop the run. The 49ers just ran the ball all game. Jimmy Garoppolo was terrible. And they beat New England by like 40 points. I don't even know what the score was. But it's like ridiculous. Like these things that are so obvious. This is why it's hard for me right now to cheer for the Patriots. And people are like, oh, Mitch, you're a Bucs fan. You're a Lions fan. You're a this and that. Obviously, I'm cheering for New England. But I'm trying to tell you that these things are just things I can't stand for as somebody that covers the league and understand what works and understand what doesn't and seeing it week in, week out. Seeing that Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce actually mean something. Seeing that DK Metcalf has helped Russell Wilson. Seeing that the Seahawks are winning games despite having the worst defense maybe I've ever seen in my life. Like, okay, we're just not going to get any of these positions that Durkant watching the game could tell you that you need to draft these positions, but we're not going to draft them. All right, we're going to draft 2 slow tight ends in the 3rd round. All right. That's enough of the Patriots. But in terms of the blame, Bill Belichick, GM, is to blame, not Cam Newton. Because I don't think you could put Mahomes on this team and they would not be good. They wouldn't. Damiere Byrd is not good. Okay? I'm sorry. Next. All right, trade deadline time. Whew! So we got a few trades that we have to discuss. Quan Alexander is the first one. Quan Alexander, this was one of my favorite trades, I think. Quan Alexander to the New Orleans Saints. So, this is a team in the New Orleans Saints that understand that we have one season left. We got one season to win the Super Bowl, all right? So what do? They address their needs for the most part. I would say if I was a GM, I would have done some slightly different things than the Saints have done. But I think most of the reason the Saints are where they're at is because Drew Brees simply isn't as good as he used to be. As my AirPods just fall and I probably broke them. But that's the way it goes, right? So, Quan Alexander to the Saints. Why do I like this move? Quan Alexander is athletic, something the Saints don't have. Quan Alexander is a good linebacker, something that the Saints have been lacking. Quan Alexander is good in coverage, something that the Saints cannot do, cover. So they address all three areas. They address speed in the middle of the field. Michael Lombardi says, I quote this from him all the time, if your middle linebacker is slow, your defense is slow. And that's the case with Quan Alexander. He brings speed. He brings side-to-side agility, ability. He brings coverage ability. Now, one of the areas he's been a little weaker is tackling. He's been a little inconsistent. But the thing with Quan Alexander is the dude can make plays. He flies around the screen. And he's a high variance player. So he's the type of player that you want on the Saints. Because the Saints know no matter how far their quarterback can throw the ball, whether it's 1 yard, 10 yards, 10 might be giving him a little bit too much credit. But if Drew Brees can't throw the ball over 10 yards, okay, it doesn't matter because Sean Payton's a genius. They're going to move the football, all right? It doesn't matter, especially with Michael Thomas. But their defense, they need to have games where they come out and they make plays. And Alexander is a guy that he's going to play really well sometimes where he is awesome. Like, he's great. In other games, he might play kind of shit. You know what I mean? But when he's on, you're going to win that game. Right? So, high variance at linebacker, I'd take it if I was the Saints. I love the deal because, you only trade a 4th-round pick and a linebacker away who's a veteran, didn't really cost you much to move, Kiko Alonso. He goes to San Francisco. San Francisco, they realized not long after they lost George Kittle and Jimmy Garoppolo that they were pretty much toast this year. We're going to get into that as well. But Alexander helps them in 3 key areas that they needed to get better. And now he can allow Demario Davis to be a more versatile player. All right, Demario Davis is getting older, but he's still really good. And I think what they can allow him to do is he can play more as a blitzer. He could play more as a pass rusher. He could be closer to the line of scrimmage instead of being in the middle of the field where maybe his age, his quickness, his speed, maybe it's not quite where it was a couple years ago. So it helps them be more versatile in the middle of the field. And it helps their terrible safety play, which has been poop, okay? Now, are the Saints still flawed? Yes. I still think their corners are overrated. I think their safeties stink. Their defensive line, their front 7 is very good. And their offensive line is excellent. They got Kamara, who's the best running back this year. Michael Thomas, who's a top 5 receiver. And Drew Brees is still competent. So you got a shot. You made a nice move. And I like the trade for the Saints. The next move I want to discuss is Avery Williamson to Pittsburgh. Now, Williamson, this is interesting, as I'm going to pick up my AirPods real quick. Bro, how did one of them fall out of the case? Anyways, go up there with Kobe. So, I would say about this move, first off, shout out to my man, Mike Beck. Longtime friend, Known him since I was 5 years old, kindergarten class, all right? This guy's been a Steelers fan since I called him the bus at recess. And ever since then, he's rocking that 36 Steel Nation. I think that's what they call you guys. I don't know. I don't care. Regardless, shout out to Mike Beck. He was all over it, doing big things now, okay? He said Williamson to Pittsburgh makes too much sense. And he was right. This was like 2 weeks ago. So I give him credit for that. Williamson, he has some sort of connection, I believe, with the linebacker coach or some sort of defensive coach on the team. And, of course, this was a need for Pittsburgh after losing Devin Bush, who I came on here week after week the last 2 weeks, and I said, losing him is absolutely significant for Pittsburgh because Devin Bush, as I just talked about with Quan Alexander, he's a sideline-to-sideline player. He's gonna scoop up that garbage in the second level. He can basically mask a lot of the deficiencies in the run game and the pass game for that Steelers defense. Now, Williamson's kind of different, right? He's not as fast, not as athletic, but he's still good. He's a darn good player. He's played in systems that are very similar to Pittsburgh, in Tennessee, and in New York. You know, those kind of base 3-4 throwback systems, but the Blitzburg style, you know, he's versatile. He can cover. He can play the run. He can blitz. He's a Pittsburgh linebacker. He's that kind of build, and he's not as athletic as Bush. He's probably not as good as Bush, but he's still like probably a top 30 linebacker in the sport. And it wasn't long ago, you know, when he was like a borderline top 10-ish, top 15 Pro Bowl type of linebacker. So to get him for a fifth, and you also add on a seventh in the deal, when you're a Super Bowl team, when you could win the Super Bowl and you realize the one flaw in your defense is that Bush injury, which I don't know if that's necessarily the case because I still think the secondary, specifically the corner position, I don't love it for certain matchups like the Chiefs, who they're going to have to play, undoubtedly. But Williamson helps that one key area that they now were missing with Bush out. And that's a really great move. It's the same thing that the Bucs did with getting McClendon when Vita Vea went down. You realize this is a team that can make something happen. Of course, right? The window is open. You have Brady in Tampa. You have Ben in Pittsburgh. Injuries are going to happen. No doubt. Undoubtedly, one of your best players is going to get hurt every year. So as a GM, it's your job to replace that player if you realize there is a hole. And in Tampa and in Pittsburgh, they have done that. And Williamson is an example of that. In terms of a player, think he's solid. Think he'll help them. And maybe he'll be better there because he'll actually be motivated. And there's something to be said about Pittsburgh linebackers. There's a lineage that stems back to the 70s with Lambert and Ham and goes to the eras upon eras of linebackers. Ryan Shazier was talking about this the other day and what it means to be a Steelers linebacker and how that motivates you and how that really is something that you look at and you say, damn, I'm now one of these guys. This is linebacker you. And I got to play at a certain level because the expectation of linebackers in this building are at a certain level. And maybe that's something Williamson needs that he didn't have in New York, where, let's be honest, what motivation do you have playing for Adam Gase and the Jets? None. Next move is Desmond King. Desmond King to the Tennessee Titans. This was probably my favorite move of the trade deadline. Desmond King was traded for a 6th round pick. Now, people are saying, okay, they stole him. He's a former All-Pro or All-Pro player. He's not an All-Pro player, guys. He's a former All-Pro player. And he was an All-Pro 1 year. Not 2, not 3, not 7, not 15. 1 year, okay? 1 year. All right? But that's not to say this isn't a great move. Because like I said, it's a great move. Desmond King, something I was wondering about Tennessee was how are they going to overcome losing Logan Ryan in the offseason. And so far, they have not. So what did Logan Ryan do? He was nickel corner, right? Desmond King, for many of his snaps and games in LA, nickel cornerback. So basically, you slide Desmond King in there. This is more of a hybrid system than King's ever played in. You don't really necessarily know how he's going to go from a Seattle defense, a Seattle scheme defense, to a more Patriot defensive scheme. That's going to be interesting, but he certainly has the athletic profile to be a man-to-man corner. He has speed. He has quickness. He's an ideal nickel corner. He's a great returner, so in that way, he gives you versatility. I think this is just a good move because it upgrades your secondary, and you needed to do one of two things. You needed to upgrade a pass rush. You needed to upgrade your secondary. Mike Vrabel realizes that, okay, our pass rush isn't great, but if we can get another corner that can help us in coverage, maybe we can get a little bit more risky up front, and we do have the athletes. Rashaan Evans, Jayon Brown, we have Clowney. They just released Vic Beasley, but they got athletes up front, Harold Landry, that maybe they're not great one-on-one blitzers or rushers, but if we send more complex schemes up front, we get a little bit more risky on the back end, we could become a competent defense the way that we were last year. We're not going to be the best defense. We're not going to be top 5, but we could get closer to where we were last year, and that's going to give us a better opportunity to win if we get a Logan Ryan kind of player. And King, I think, can give you that. He's not the tackler that Ryan is. I don't think he's like the safety hybrid that Ryan is, but he's faster. He's more athletic. I think he's probably better in man coverage. So there's pluses and there's negatives to that. But you're getting a slot corner that you desperately needed and that will help you all around in your scheme for the Tennessee Titans. So I like this move. Now, there were other moves that were made at the trade deadline that are also interesting. I mean, Isaiah Ford to New England. Who freaking cares, bro? Then you got DeAndre Washington to Miami. That's interesting because Gaskin just got injured. I don't know how long he's out, how serious that injury is, how detrimental it is to Miami, who actually have legitimate playoff hopes this year. But Washington is a guy that I always thought was like an analytic darling. Every time I watched him, he was one of those guys that I was like, if I had a team and I wanted a third string running back, I would sign DeAndre Washington because to me, he always kind of popped off the screen. He's a good receiver. He's kind of versatile in that way. And he kind of reminds me of Myles Gaskin. He's a similar kind of player. So maybe he replaces that role for the short term for them on the cheap. I don't hate that deal. I'm not sure what the deal was in terms of assets given up, but that's not bad. So in terms of the grades, I know you guys wanted grades because I'm a YouTuber, so you want grades on everything. I'm not a school teacher, but I'll give you what I can give you, all right? So Quan Alexander, I'll give a B. Avery Williamson, I'll give... That's a tough one. I'm going to give B+. Desmond King, A-. There's the grades. I just totally spitballed that, but I know you guys want grades because you feed off of it. So, there you go. All right. Next, we got the Pittsburgh Steelers versus the Baltimore Ravens. This was the game of the week. In week 8, this was the AFC showdown everybody was looking forward to. And what happened in this game? Quite honestly, the Ravens dominated in a way that I didn't expect. They dominated on the ground, which the Steelers coming into the game were first or second versus the run. And the Ravens ran, especially in the second half, for like 200 yards. Edwards was impressive. Dobbins was impressive. Lamar was running. They didn't have Mark Ingram in the game. If they would have played like that from the jump, the Ravens would have won the game. So in some way, yes, the Steelers won the game. But the Ravens kind of pushed them around in the second half. and showed that they're still on their level. They're elite. And these two teams are a toss-up given their second and possibly third time they play. And the reason the Ravens lost is because of turnovers. Lamar gave them the game. I mean, Lamar played one of his worst games I've seen him play. And this is the second time, maybe the second time, that Lamar has played poorly versus Pittsburgh and a lot of these same players on this defense. Lamar was inaccurate. Lamar was indecisive. Lamar sometimes didn't see people in coverage. And we saw all of Lamar's flaws, right? The release, the inaccuracy, under pressure, right? And the defense played really well for Pittsburgh and basically won them this game in the first half. They got a lead. That's what you got to do versus the Ravens. They made some plays on defense. They set up Big Ben in position to make plays in the red zone, to make short drives for scores. Chase Claypool came through with a touchdown. But really, the Steelers did nothing on offense. It's kind of what I thought. I thought this game would be much lower scoring, but it was because of the turnovers and the quarterback play that was very shaky for both sides that allowed this game to be higher scoring. I know that sounds kind of weird, but because of the turnovers, that's what allowed this game to go over instead of under because of the short fields that the offenses on each side were given. Lamar, again, I'll continue to say it's not all his fault, nowhere close, because his receivers aren't very good and his offensive line is much worse than it was. Marquise Brown tweeted about how you don't get your guys the ball or whatever, dude. Like, come on. Okay, Mark Andrews is disappointed this year. They clearly miss a guy like Hayden Hurst, although Hayden Hurst isn't very good. They miss those jumbo tight end sets that were so effective for them. Defenses have figured them out in the passing game. This is just a team that every single one of their flaws are clear. They're clear. When they get behind, they're not a good team. They are not built to play from behind. They can't pass the ball consistently, effectively versus anybody. Their offensive line isn't as good as it was last year, so they're not allowed or not able to dictate pace of play the way they used to. And Lamar is not playing at MVP level right now. He's sometimes missing open throws. He's missing downfield throws. And that's something he was not missing last year. So this game to me was more about the Ravens losing than the Steelers winning. As much as I want to give the Steelers credit for winning the game and for being undefeated and for being that team and for showing up, the Ravens need to play better when they play top teams. And their offenses look shaky in both games they played the Chiefs and the Steelers, which is making me say that they are clearly in the second tier of the AFC. First tier of the AFC is the Chiefs, Steelers. Steelers belong there with the Chiefs. They got a great defense. They create pressure. They force turnovers. Ben is good enough. Their run game isn't great. They got good coaching. Receivers are awesome, but they need to stay healthy. I really want to see if they play the Chiefs, how that goes down. I don't really know how it would go down. I would lean towards the Chiefs, but I think it would be a really entertaining game. The second tier of the AFC is kind of, now you're talking about the Ravens moving down to that level with the Titans, the Colts, I would throw in the Raiders and maybe the Browns. I don't know, maybe I'm missing. Oh, the Bills, of course. So the Ravens are more so in that second tier than the first tier, which maybe a lot of people thought at the beginning of the season. So that's kind of my thoughts on the game. Lamar hasn't performed to the way that you would like this year, but again, I don't think it's all his fault. People overrate the quarterback, the importance, how much they win and lose games. They're the most important position in any sport, in my opinion, but that doesn't mean that they can solve all issues. And the Ravens, much like New England, they're lacking. Now, they have more, but they're lacking at the second most important position. I'll continue to say it. Wide receiver, tight end, playmaker. It's a passing game. It's an offensive game. More points than ever. You need playmakers. And the Ravens, they're lacking those, especially big play guys. So that's my thoughts on that game. Tua time, Durkant time, Flores time. The Dolphins, Miami is back. Whatever you want to say. All right, the Dolphins showed up, and in the most predictable, not predicted game of the week, the Dolphins, does that make sense to you? I hope it does, because I talked about on last Wednesday during the picks segment, how I want to pick the Dolphins. Everything in my mind tells me to pick the Dolphins, but I'm not going to pick the Dolphins. So this was the most predictable, not predicted by most people, game of the week, where the Dolphins shellacked the Rams, which I saw coming, but was not ballsy enough to actually say would happen. So that's what I mean by the predictable, non-predicted game of the week. Tua time or Flores time? Now, Tua was not good in his first game. It's as simple as that. From DVOA, worst offense of the week, Miami Dolphins. Tua, what do you have? I need to check so I don't get my stats wrong, guys. Can't get my stats wrong here. Tua had a lower yards per attempt than the Mario brother playing quarterback, DiNucci, for the Cowboys. Tua threw for 4.2 yards per attempt, which would make Drew Brees look bad. All right? It wasn't Tua. And I'm not trying to hate on Tua. I know I got this reputation of being a Tua hater. But it was more about the defense, all right? The Dolphins, if they're going to do anything this year, it's because of Brian Flores, and it's because of Flores time. Not Tua time, Flores time. What was it on Sunday? Flores time. He brought it, absolutely brought it versus Sean McVay. Said, Sean, I know you thought it was Bill, but it was really me. It was me all along, Austin. It was me. I was the one that shut down your offense in the Super Bowl, and I'll do it again. And the boys rounded up. Byron Jones, Xavier Howard doing their best Gilmore, J.C. Jackson impression. All right. Kyle Van Noy doing a Kyle Van Noy impression. All right. They dominated Jared Goff. Jared Goff sucks. All right. Maybe that was a little loud. Sorry. If that was too loud, I'm sorry. He's terrible. Guy is so bad, but I'm convinced that if Jared Goff did not play for the Rams with Sean McVay, he would not be talked about as a competent NFL quarterback. The guy, he just has games where he is absolute, utter poop. Like, terrible. I don't know what to say. He lost the game. It wasn't that the Dolphins won, even though they had a great defensive game plan. And this is really concerning because literally Brian Flores just rolled out the Super Bowl 53 game plan and they dominated with the same game plan. It's like McVay never went back to the drawing board. It's like the Rams never fixed what their problems were. They just rolled out with the same thing and they expected it to change and it did not work. So in some ways, it's McVay's fault. But it's also Goff's fault because he sucks. All right? And Flores took advantage of Goff under pressure, being one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL. Goff taking away the crossing routes, taking away the easy stuff. And this is the stuff I like to see from defensive coordinators. Take away the easy stuff. How good's the quarterback? Facing Drew Brees. Take away the swing pass. How good is Drew Brees? Versus Tom Brady. Right? Take away the middle of the field. How good's Tom Brady? Versus Lamar Jackson. Take away his running ability. How good's Lamar Jackson? You need to force quarterbacks to play left-handed. I don't care what you gotta do. I don't care if you have to, double Julio all game for Mez to make Matt Ryan look like a bum. Whatever you have to do, you got to take away the crutch. You got to take away the strength. And Jared Goff, when you take away his strength, when you take away the system of Sean McVay, the guy sucks. And that's worse than I can say about other quarterbacks. So, Goff lost the game. It was Flores time. It wasn't Tua time. If the Dolphins make the playoffs, it's because they have the coach of the year and Brian Flores, not a sensational rookie. Maybe Tua will get better. He faced a tough defense this week, but he wasn't great in his first game. That's all I got to say. Shout out to Mez. What's up, man? The injured 49ers. I don't even know how many injuries. I got to look this up, actually. Like, this is insane. I don't even... Like, the 49ers, I came on here, like, last week, maybe the week before that, whatever. And I said, man, this team is so injured. It is insane. But if they get any sort of health, they can be good. And they can be a legitimate contender. But that's not going to be the case this year, guys. Like, let's just take a look at these injuries. Obviously, they traded Quan Alexander. Let's go through the list, shall we? Jimmy Garoppolo, Raheem Mostert, Tevin Coleman, Jeff Wilson, Deebo Samuel, Jalen Hurd, George Kittle, Jordan Reed, Weston Richburg, Nick Bosa, Dee Ford, Ziggy Ansah, Solomon Thomas, Richard Sherman, Quan Williams, Jaquiski Tart. Like, that's probably just the start. It's insane. They lost their starting quarterback, their starting running back, their backup running back, their third string running back, their best receiver, the best tight end in football, their center, one of the best pass rushers in the league, one of the best secondary pass rushers in the league, Richard Sherman, their top cornerback, Quan Williams, their nickel corner, Jaquiski Tart, their strong safety. The story of San Francisco is one that is depressing. This happens from time to time. A really elite roster that is just stripped by injuries. And I'm not saying this team would be a Super Bowl team, but they had a chance to be something this year, and injuries completely diminished it. If Kyle Shanahan were to get to the playoffs with this team, forget it. Forget it. I'll have a shrine in the back here next to the BLV sign of just Kyle Shanahan. That will be it. I'll take this board down. They make the playoffs with Nick Mullins and Jordan Reed and Trent Taylor. I'll have a shrine of Kyle Shanahan. But Jimmy Garoppolo's a problem. I'm going to say that. With Jimmy, without Jimmy. Quarterback position sucks. They need a new quarterback. Maybe it's Matt Ryan. Maybe it's Kirk Cousins. Maybe it's Matthew Stafford. We'll have to wait and see, but it's not Jimmy Garoppolo. He will be gone, and you have to wonder, should the 49ers have taken Tom Brady's offer and signed Mr. Tom Brady? Because I think he wanted to go there. Daniel Jones. Monday Night Football, New York Giants. Played a close one versus Tampa Bay, which is something I feared at being obviously a Bucs fan, guys. It's outright. It's honest. It's out there. But I did fear that it would be kind of a, letdown spot, peeking ahead at the Saints, coming off a couple big victories, thinking you're the shit, all that sort of stuff. On Monday Night Football, the Giants played a competitive game versus the Bucs. Daniel Jones had some nice throws. Daniel Jones also had some atrocious throws. He also had moments of absolute, utter terribleness. I don't know what else to say. He was missing open, deep bombs to guys. But the biggest problem with Daniel Jones is not his accuracy, because he actually can throw the ball quite well. He has a strong arm. Obviously, he's one of the best mobile quarterbacks in the league. He's one of the fastest quarterbacks in the league. Daniel Jones is athletic. Daniel Jones is a prototype size of a quarterback. He's got a good arm. He's got everything you would kind of want, but he's stupid. Like, straight up, he's dumb. And it's the same problem as Carson Wentz. Like, you sit there and you watch Carson Wentz on Sunday Night Football, and you watch Daniel Jones on Monday Night Football, and it's like you're watching the same guy. Like, they make the throws, they can run a little bit, you know, they look like good athletes, they are good athletes, they make some wow plays, but at the same time, like, why aren't you throwing the ball away? Like, you're holding onto the ball for 15 seconds, you could just throw it away, or you could just throw a pick. Like, Daniel Jones, the Giants probably win the game if he just takes a sack twice. Like, honestly. Last night, I thought the only reason the Bucs won was because of Tom Brady and the difference between his decision-making and Daniel Jones' decision-making. The reason the Bucs won is because they had a better quarterback than the Giants. It's really as simple as that. If Jameis Winston was playing for the Bucs, they lose. Because Jameis Winston was playing for the Giants last night. We saw, I tweeted this out, the 2019 Bucs last night playing the 2020 Bucs. That's what we saw. That's what we saw. The Bucs, their defense wasn't the greatest last night. They got ran on a little bit more than usual. They gave up some big plays. But they made plays when they needed to. And the offense was coming together in the second half. They started slow. They came out flat. That was expected. But in the second half, that offense started to click, you know, with some backup to the backup. I mean, Chris Godwin isn't there. They're getting AB now. That offense is going to be something else when they get those guys on the field. With Jaden Mickens, you know, they were getting it going. They were scoring at will in the second half with Jaden Mickens. So now imagine Antonio Brown. This is a good Giants defense, by the way. Giants defense plays with a lot of heart. They're tough. They're physical. They're a better secondary than you would have thought, adding Logan Ryan, James Bradbury. Jabril Peppers is playing better. Blake Martinez has helped them in the middle of the field. All that stuff. They're stout up front versus the run. Like, the Giants defense is solid, and they play with an edge. I thought Jason Garrett actually called a good game yesterday offensively. I thought their defense, I think Joe Judge is a solid coach for them. He fits the New York style of football, but they can't have a quarterback that turns the ball over this much. They're lacking talent still, obviously, but they play with a spirit that you like to see from a team that's not very good. So that's a positive thing. Speaking about the Bucs, Tom Brady, Drew Brees, 2. Sunday Night Football, Brady, Brees, big game. Bucs, I believe they're -4, favored by 4 points. Let me double check. Oh! It went up to -5.5. Vegas is on something. So, wow. Vegas feels that the Bucs at home are nearly a touchdown better than the Saints. Interesting. Now, if I had to bet on that game, I'd side with the Bucs, and you kind of know where I'm going tomorrow. I do feel the Bucs are a better team, but that's interesting to me that it went up, considering the Bucs played like crap yesterday. But maybe they know what I know, and that's that the team's going to be much better with Godwin and AB. But I'm looking forward to this game. I think it's potentially an NFC Championship preview. there's definitely potential for that. I think seeing these two Hall of Famers in action is going to be fun again. Seeing how the defenses will try to defend them. I think a huge storyline is obviously Antonio Brown. How much does he play? How good does he look with Tom Brady? The bromance brewing with Brady. Breeze with maybe Michael Thomas back. That's going to be fun. This is huge. The Saints need to win this game. They need to win this game if they have a chance at the division. If the Bucs lose this game, they're in trouble a little bit. Because now the Saints have a 2-game advantage on them, which that's hard to come back from, even if you're at like the same record. So this is a big game and an actual Sunday Night Football game, not something we saw last week. It was like a preseason game. We're watching an actual football game on Sunday night. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to seeing both quarterbacks. And I think we're going to see the difference right now between Brady and Breeze, which I think is pretty clear to anyone that's watched them this year. And finally, the stock report. So here I have, how many teams do I have written down? I have like 7 teams written down here. Let me see. I have 7 teams, and I'm just going to give you my thoughts on the teams. I'm going to say if they're trending up, they're trending down, maybe they're staying the same. I'm just going to give you these 7 teams and talk about my thoughts. So let's start with the Tennessee Titans. Tennessee Titans lost to the Cincinnati Bengals. For that reason, and that reason only, they have to be trending down. You do not lose to the Cincinnati Bengals and get any sort of respect from me. I am sorry. You cannot lose to the Cincinnati Bengals when they have the worst offensive line in football and are missing 4 of their linemen. 4! And you couldn't sack Joe Burrow once. He did not even get touched in the game. He did not get knocked down once. The Titans are trending down. As much as I like the Desmond King addition, having absolutely zero pass rush is very concerning. Ryan Tannehill, we knew that he would regress at a certain point. He did not play as well versus the Bengals. And really, in a game that we thought Derrick Henry would take over and dominate, he didn't. So maybe it was a bad matchup. You could say this, you could say that. All right. But the Titans were trash on Sunday. You can't lose to teams like that if you want to win your division. Number 2 team, Green Bay Packers, trending down. All right. The Packers, they lost to the Vikings. Okay, divisional loss. But what did we see? The same old Packers. They can't stop the run. They're too reliant on Devontae Adams. Aaron Jones is missed. If it's not Alexander, they really can't cover all that well either. Zadarius Smith is invisible right now. Aaron Rodgers is playing better this year. But the rest of the team is the same. They literally have not changed from last year outside of Rodgers getting a little bit better. And I'm starting to worry that wasn't Rodgers getting better. That was Rodgers playing crap teams. That's what that was. So, Packers are trending down. The Miami Dolphins are the number 3 team. They are obviously trending up because Flores' time has taken over Miami. Their defense is top 5. Probably top 5. I was going to say top 10. It's probably top 5 right now. If Tua can play decently well, they can make the playoffs. He doesn't have to play top 10, top 15. But if he can be okay, competent, not turn the ball over, make a couple big throws, better than he was on Sunday, if he continues to progress, they can get better and they can make the playoffs. But I don't really see that happening. I think he's going to be one of the worst quarterbacks for the rest of the year. And I don't know if that's because of talent, if that's because he's not the guy, or if that's just because Fitzpatrick was playing well. Put him back in. Probably going to make the playoffs with Fitzpatrick. Tua's inexperienced. Tua doesn't have a great offensive line. And when you have a bad offensive line and an inexperienced quarterback that is going to inevitably take time to make his decisions, it's going to make your offense worse. So I'm worried about the offense, but I love the defense and I love the coaching. So, and Miami makes good decisions. It's not just Flores, but it's even from the offensive side of the ball. They make good decisions. Analytically, they're usually on the right side. The number 4 team is the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, some people would say they're going up because they beat the Browns. I'd say they stay the same. I expected them to beat the Browns. They are who Mitch thought they were, all right? And yes, I said my name in third person, all right? The Raiders are a solid team that's capable of beating good teams. The Browns are not one of them. One of my teams trending down. The Browns are not good. Their quarterback sucks ass, all right? Odell is out. Their defense stinks. The Raiders beat a team they're better than. I don't understand why we thought that the Browns were better than the Raiders in the first place, because they never were, and they aren't. I'm sorry. All right? Chicago, trending down. Trending down. Trending down. Why? Why are they trending down? Because their offense is absolutely dreadful. Dreadful. This is the Chicago team of last year. Offensive line sucks. All they have is Allen Robinson. Their run game's awful. Quarterback's inconsistent. Defense is really good. But when your offense is this bad in an offensive game, you're going to have a tough time. And the Bears might be 8-8. They might get as high as 9-7. But because they can't score, they're not going to be a playoff team. If they continue to play offense the way they have versus the Saints and the Rams, they're not making the playoffs. They need to play better on offense. They need to. So they're trending down. And the final team is the Colts. They're trending up. They dominated my Lions on Sunday. Their defense, to me, is what really stood out, more so than even Phillip Rivers playing well. We knew Phillip Rivers was still capable of playing pretty well, and he did. But the defensive line is ferocious. They got constant pressure after Matthew Stafford, which caused a couple of mistakes, pick six, fumble. That really turned the game in their favor. Their defensive line dominated. Pass rush, run defense. They allowed, Swift had 5 carries for 1 yard, and Peterson had 7 carries for 10 yards. So yeah, they didn't really let any running game go. Their offense was efficient. They made adjustments at the bye week. They're a team that will make the playoffs just because they're one of the more balanced teams in the league. I think Rivers is just inconsistent, kind of average, and they really don't have the receivers to make an average quarterback good. They like Ty has regressed to the point of not being even on the field as a competent threat. Their tight ends are fine, but nothing explosive. Their run game's okay. Their offense is actually what's holding them back more so than their defense, which has been the flip of the past. So the Colts are trending up, but I'm skeptical because the offense is still pretty bad. So that's the team stock watch. Tennessee down, Green Bay down, Cleveland down, Chicago down, Miami up, Indy up, Raiders the same. That's the show. Let's get to the Q&A. If you guys have any questions, let me know. If you've enjoyed the show, Gronk, spike that like button. We have 151 people in here right now. If you enjoyed, Gronk, spike that like button. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already for more NFL videos just like this and the weekly NFL recap. Okay. I also got to plug some things because that's what we do on YouTube. Plug stuff. So let's start with Instagram. You can follow us on Instagram at the same name as the channel, at TheBottomLineView. Posted some stuff today, including the Ultra Top 10, which you could see on the Instagram before on this show. If you want to see exclusive content that you don't get on YouTube, follow us on Instagram at TheBottomLineView. Also, join the Discord community. Join the community. We got 200 people in the Discord. Passionate NFL fans that love to talk about the NFL, love to talk about sports, love to trash talk each other, love to have debates about the NFL. So if you are a passionate football fan, join the Bottom Line View Discord. Link is in the description. And finally, guys, the Patreon. Starts at $3 a month. All right? $3 a month. Patreon, best bets. My look aheads at the lines every week in the NFL. If you are a bettor, you can ask me fantasy-related questions. We're having discussions about individual NFL positions, football positions, from quarterback to running back to tight end, to how they're valued, to what to look for in the position. That sort of stuff's coming out right now on the Bottom Line View. So if you're interested in that, subscribe to Patreon, support me, support the channel, and support the dream. All right, let's get to the comments. Mark says, Mitch, should I swap Carson Wentz for Phillip Rivers in free agency in a PPR league? I would say no. I think Wentz has more upside. I mean, it depends on the matchup. I think in certain matchups you could start Rivers over Wentz, but it depends on the game. Mark says, please fire Nagy. Doug Peterson needs him. Caleb says, what's Lions' chances at the playoffs? 40%. Am I the only one who still isn't buying into Pittsburgh? Maybe. I think they're good. I don't think they're like the best team in the league like Ultra thinks, but I think they are very good. Samuel says, why didn't the Packers trade for Will Fuller? Apparently the Packers wanted too much for him. That's apparently why. Winrus asks, what are the top 5 defenses through week 8? Okay, in no order, the Ravens, the Bucks, the Bears, the Colts, and the Steelers, I think. Dolphins, honorable mention. I don't think I missed anyone there, but let me know if I did. Why am I always hating on the Dolphins? They good? I'm not. I just praised them all video. What is the most pressing issue with the Pats? Bro, go back to the first 20 minutes of this video and you will find that out. Amari Cooper or Allen Robinson? Real life or in fantasy? Allen Robinson in fantasy. The only thing that's holding me back is Ben is very old and isn't. It's showing in his throws. Yeah, he's not been great this year. I still think he's like top half of the league, but he's not top 10 anymore. Infinity says, what ranking do you think the Cards are out of all 32 teams? Somewhere at the bottom of the top 10, top 12-ish. Ultra says, Mitch, I'm not sure if you touched on this or not, but this wasn't Lamar's first poor game this year. He's been off since the Chiefs game, specifically as a passer. Yes, he has. Carson says, would you give DK Metcalf? I just traded DK Metcalf in my league, by the way. And get Chris Carson and Robbie Anderson. Depends on your running back position, but maybe. It's not a bad trade. Connor says, Jets win 35-20 over the Patriots. Okay. Singh says, what if the Cowboys give the Steelers their first loss? I will pay you $1,000. Sean says, what do you think about Minshew being on the bench? I think it's garbage because he doesn't deserve to be benched. He's clearly the best quarterback on that team. They are benching him for reasons that don't have anything to do with his play. Now, am I saying Minshew's amazing? No. But he's definitely the best quarterback on the team. So if they want to win, they shouldn't bench him. But they don't want to win. So that's why they're benching him. GSP says, yo, Mitch, do you think New England is beating the Jets? Yes. Infinity says, Cards or Miami? Cards. Travis says, are the Steelers making the Super Bowl? Maybe. Nicholas says, Mitch, you know I'm dang right. If Darnell Mooney was on the Pats, you'd be hyping him up. He'd easily be the number 1 receiver. He probably would. Patriots don't have NFL receivers. Mooney is an NFL receiver. So, possibly he'd be the best receiver on that team. What do you think the problem is with the Giants? They just don't have enough talent. I think Daniel Jones' decision-making is part of it. But from the offensive line to parts of the defense, they don't have enough talent. Running back right now. I think they could be good in like one off season. It wouldn't take a lot for the Giants to be good, given the strides that they've made this season. And they have made strides, in my opinion. Scropo says, what do you think about Big Ben on the Steelers? Big Ben's playing solid. He needs to cut down the turnovers, though. He needs to cut down the bad decisions. If he can keep those out of the game, he has a chance to win every week. This team is good enough for him not to be amazing and still win. Caleb says, the Lions have a good damn shot, in my opinion. What do you think? I think the Lions have 40% chance. GSP said Josh Allen hasn't looked the same since Tennessee smacked him. Yes, I mean, he's played better teams. That's part of it. Travis says, if Kenny Golladay was not hurt, will you think Kenny Golladay is elite, whether he's hurt or not? Connor says, will you stream the Drew Tranquil revenge game when it comes? When is that? Carson says, I have Christian McCaffrey and Kareem Hunt and James Robinson. Oh my gosh. How many running backs do you start? I wouldn't do it if... I don't think I would be pressing to do it. Because if you have McCaffrey coming back, you got Metcalf and your team's loaded, bro. JJ Watt to the Cards? Trade deadline's over, so it's not happening. Maybe in the offseason. Sean says, who do you think's getting the number 1 draft pick? The Jets. The Jets, guys. Nobody but the Jets getting the number 1 pick. Don't even think about another team getting the number 1. Have you watched the Jets, guys? The Chiefs were swag surfing on them. Damn, Bus is a player. Scrobo says, do you like the Seahawks? I don't hate the Seahawks. I like the Seahawks a little bit less because I traded DK Metcalf today. So maybe slightly less than I liked them yesterday, but I don't hate them. Matthew Stafford or Aaron Rodgers? Aaron Rodgers. But I love Matthew Stafford. Mark says, what exact quarterback should the Niners get in the 2021 offseason? As a Niner fan, Matthew Stafford. Good segue. If they can, Matthew Stafford. Mark says, give Saquon some hogs to run behind. Yes, sir, Mark. Mark's right. Nicholas says, Mitch, we aren't going 8-8. We got the Jags, the Lions, the Vikings, 2 times, the Texans. It says at least 3 to 4 wins, plus our other games. 8-8. I don't know. Maybe 9-7. Michael says, stream Steelers and Cowboys on Sunday. I'm going to be streaming Bucks, Saints, Sunday Night Football. Be there, be square. Maybe not. I don't know. Probably, but not sure. I'll take a vote. Carson says, quarterback Justin Herbert. What are you talking about? Oh, your fantasy team? Guys, let's get to at least 50 likes for this live stream. Make sure you do Gronk spike that like button. We have 140 people in here and 43 likes, bro. That's honestly, I feel a little bit disrespected. All right. I feel a little bit disrespected that there's only 43 likes and 140 people watching. I feel like 43 people like me. 3 people like me enough to give me a dislike. And 100 other people don't like me. Ultra says, Mitch, do you think Dan Quinn was the issue with Atlanta's defense, given the fact that it has been good since Morris took over? Part of his ideology and scheme was the issue, but I think part of the issue is just the secondary is terrible. Like, there's no way around it. But yeah. Dwayne says, why does people keep saying Ben turns the ball over this year? 15 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, which is top 10 this year so far. Fair point, I guess. Bus says go follow TikTok. Yes, sir. Go follow Bus So Real at TheBottomLineView TikTok. We're on TikTok, baby. All my young people out there, follow us on TikTok because we're making noise on TikTok. Connor says, it's November, but my fantasy team still busted all over the place. That's hilarious. He says, Thielen, Moore, Taylor, dead. Connor, you should have just drafted the guys I told you. All right? You would have been in the championship, bro. You see me smack their Cants team this week? I got to look at that. Look at this. Damn. I just bullied their Cant in fantasy this week. Guys, give me a Gronk spike for that bullying of their Cant. Hear the lion roar, baby. Now my camera's fuzzy. What's my opinion on David Blau? I don't remember how to say his name. I think it's Blau. I don't love him from what I've seen. Who's my favorite NFL player? Tom Brady. Ultra with his quarterback rankings. Wilson, number 1. Mahomes, number 2. Brady, number 3. Number 4, Rodgers. Wow. Number 5, Watson. Number 6, Jackson. Number 7, Murray. Number 8, Allen. Number 9, Tannehill. Number 10, Ryan. Of course, he had to squeak in Matt Ryan there. What is your latest playoff seedings for both conference? That's a good question. Why did someone drop Aaron Jones? What will the Niners be next season? A good team. Travis says, how good do you think Trevor Lawrence will be? Very good. Very good. My playoff, let's go. Number 1 in the AFC, Pittsburgh. Number 2, Kansas City. Number 3, Buffalo. Number 4, Tennessee. No. Yes. Number 5, Baltimore. Number 6, Indy. Number 7, the Raiders. Now NFC. Number 1, Tampa Bay. Number 2, Seattle. Number 3, Packers. Number 4, who cares? Number 5, Saints. Number 6, the Cardinals? I don't know. Number 7, NFC is ass. I don't know. The Rams? Maybe? The Lions? The Bears? Not the Cowboys. I don't know. NFC is terrible. My top 5 wideouts of all time. I guess it depends. Okay, top 5 receivers I've ever seen. Let's go with that. Because all time, then you're talking about guys like Don Hudson. You're talking about, the Lance Allworths of the world. Those kind of guys. So, top 5 guys I've ever seen. So, let's say 2000 till now. Number 1, Randy Moss. Number 2, T.O. Number 3, Number 3, AB. Number 4, Calvin. Number 5, Julio. Probably. Honorable mention, Wes Welker. No, I'm just kidding. That's for Duquette. Honorable mention, Jacoby Myers. Jacob says, do you like Matthew Stafford or Drew Brees? Stafford is better. Nicholas says, number 1, Kansas City. Number 2, Baltimore. Number 3, Indy. Number 4, Miami. Number 5, Pittsburgh. Number 6, Tennessee. Number 7, Buffalo. Wow. Yes. I almost put AB at 2, to be honest. He's definitely top 4. But my number 3 that I've ever seen in my life from 1996 to 2020. Almost forgot the year. Ultra says Buccaneers number 1, Seahawks number 2, Packers number 3, 4, who cares? Number 5, Saints, number 6, Lions, number 7, Cardinals. Ooh, Lions. Nicholas has got the Bucks at 1, Packers at 2, Cardinals at 3, Packers at 2, 4, Seahawks at 5. Huh? Guys, AB had the best stretch that any receiver has ever had in the history of the NFL. So yes, he was better than Calvin. He was. As good as Calvin was, AB is better. I'm sorry. It's just facts. It's just facts. Look at this. Look at the stats. What could AB not do? He could run routes better than anyone. He could catch jump balls better than anybody at the time in his prime. He was explosive, yak player. He was a great punt returner. Quick, fast, hard worker. Unstoppable. Double teams. Like intermediate, short, deep. Calvin hurt himself because his career was too short. Robert says, Mitch, the 2-point conversion Monday Night Football, the referee pass interference call was correct. Then the referees huddled, waved the pass interference. I didn't think it was pass interference personally when I first saw it. And you could call me biased, whatever you want. But Winfield kind of ran into him because his momentum was going that way. I don't think it was actually pass interference because he was in a good position. So I actually thought they got the call correct. But was it fishy that they threw the flag reactionary and then picked it up? Yes. So I agree with you there. But in terms of what the correct call was, I actually thought they made the correct call. But that call never happens if Daniel Jones just throws the ball. If Daniel Jones just throws the ball right away to the open receiver, nobody's talking about a PI that got picked up because he just made the play. Yeah, Broncos, big comeback win. Bus. Go to sleep, Bus. Nicholas got Denver winning 100%. Honestly, I don't remember, but I'll give you that, I guess. Ultra continues to state that Julio is better than AB, although he lost an argument in it. Are the Steelers going to sweep the Ravens? No. T-Girl says Seahawks go to the Super Bowl and lose, like always. Well, they won in 2013. Julio is at number 5 because he needs to learn how to score touchdowns. Touchdowns are the most important stat for a receiver. I don't care what you tell me, all right? It's not like anyone else was not double teamed. Calvin Johnson was doubled. Randy Moss was doubled. Jerry Rice was doubled. Antonio Brown was doubled. I don't care. They put up more touchdowns than Julio, all right? There's something to be said about that. Julio's phenomenal. He's top 10 all time, but not better than AB. He wasn't better when they played. He might be better now. Probably is better now, but wasn't better when they played. Joe says, how do you feel about the Dolphins making a comeback with Tua as a quarterback? They didn't make a comeback with Tua. they made a comeback with Fitzpatrick, and then he lost his job for no particular reason, and then it became Flores time. So I don't necessarily agree with that. T-Girl says, Mitch, who is better, Patrick Mahomes or Russell Wilson this season? Russell Wilson this season, over the last couple of seasons, Mahomes. Katie is back and sad. What's up, Katie? We're just chatting. Cole says Dolphins are going to make the playoffs. Interesting. Trash, Ultra. Trash. What do you guys think? Trubisky or Foles? Who do you guys think should be starting for the Bears? TJ Watt or Khalil Mack? TJ Watt, but it's really close. Maybe Khalil Mack. I don't know, man. I will say, though, 53 likes, 123 people watching. I mean, still like 70 people hate me in here, so it's all good, man. I'll remember that you didn't like the video. Nicholas, classic. Mac, easy. Galdrin says, should I start Julio and Antonio? Yes, do it for old time's sake. We got some Trubiskys. We got Foles. T-Girl says none. That's a good answer. Probably the right answer. They both trash. Bus says TJ Watt better than Mac. Michael says Trubisky. Connor says Trubisky. Winra says Chris Godwin makes a huge difference for the Bucs offense with the injury this year. AB signing makes more and more sense. I totally agree. Chris Godwin's super underrated because people don't realize how valuable he is to the offense. Larry Fitzgerald's overrated, says Ultra. Mitch approves. Yeah, all time and right now probably by Nick. But yeah. Interesting, Jesse. I did not know that stat, but that makes sense. Michael says Larry Fitz is his favorite of all time. Nicholas says, well, not easy. 1 Garrett, 2 Mac, 3 Watt. It's a solid list. Jesse says Garrett is overrated. Why you say that? All right, I'll stay for another 2 minutes. They're haters, Katie. They're hating on me. T-Girl says Jets win against the Pats and Pats get a top 5 pick. Don't make me cry. DK Metcalf is the next Julio Jones, says Carson. I think he's closer to Calvin than he is Julio, but I don't think he's either one, but he's something else. I think he's only like 22 too, so like the guy's a freak. Guy's a freakazoid. Nicholas says Rice 1, Moss 2, Fitz 3. Preston Williams and Chase Claypool would make for the best wide receiver duo in the league. GSP, I don't know what you're drinking, but stop. Connor says Chase Claypool is the next DK Metcalf. I don't know. It's not that fast. He's not as fast as DK. He's fast. He's not as fast as DK. But he's equally as big. Joe says Eagles will make a comeback. Don't count us out. All right. Yes, recency bias does not apply to aliens. Absolutely correct, Connor. That is a Mitch Milani quote. All right. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed. Thanks for tuning in tonight. If you enjoyed, don't forget to Gronk spike that like button and subscribe to the channel. It's Mitch. We'll see you tomorrow for our weekly picks. Week 9 NFL picks, Saints, Bucks, and a lot more. Peace!